Welcome to the very first To The Point of the week. It is Monday, May 4th, 2020. Happy to have each and every one of you joining us. Actually, it's the first To The Point of the month. Yes, it is. Good morning and welcome to those of you joining us on the GBN Television Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel. Those of you logged on to the website, www.gbn.gd. Those of you on GBN channel 7, 11, and 20. And the listeners of Classic 105 and Hot 98. Good morning to each and every one of you. Like I said, it is the very first To The Point program of the month. And it is only fitting that we start this month dealing with mental health. And May has been designated as Mental Health Awareness Month. And this morning I have joining us clinical psychologist in the Ministry of Social Development, Dr. Augustine Panchoo, a familiar face to the program. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, Blossom. Good morning to all of our listeners.
I
trust you had a great weekend.
I tried my very best to do that. You did the same, I hope?
Yes, I did. I got a little fun and a little work and some rest.
Nice to know. So let's dig right into it. Mental Health Month in the month of May. First of all, why is it important that we have a month designated to the observance of such a topic?
Well, I think a lot of people do not understand the importance of mental health, and so I wish every day was Mental Health Day, because it is so important for people to be psychologically sound and emotionally well. So I think the Psychological Association and the those of us who promote wellness and mental health, sound mental health. We're happy that someone listened and decided that May month is going to be designated as the month in which we pay particular attention to and special emphasis on mental wellness and emotional well-being.
It comes at a time when there has been news about two successive suicides in the northern part of the island. Within, I think it was less than a week, there were two gentlemen that allegedly took their lives. How important is it for people to pay attention to their mental health, especially those of the, people who are dealing with suicidal thoughts as well?
Very good question. It is really important for persons to pay attention to the emotional well-being. Many of us, when we are physically ill, we have a cough, we have pain, we have aches, we go to the doctor. We want to be seen. We want to be made whole. And that's just for the physical body. That is what we can see and touch and feel. However, there is the other dimension of our personhood, which is the emotional and the psychological well-being. And a lot of times, people neglect it because they do not feel that it is so important. But we need to pay attention to our emotional health, our psychological health, because I tell you, in reference to the two persons, I am working with the families and with the whole situation, so I will not divulge. There are a lot of confidential stuff regarding these two families who have been devastated by the loss of their loved ones.
Understood.
And I certainly would not want this topic to become insensitive to them. However, there is no blame to be cast, and I want to say that now. There is no blame to be cast because people have the choice to make how they want to live their life. But what I do want to say regarding these suicide that we have had, and we have had a couple for the year so far. We had a gentleman who it is alleged that he plunged into Granitang. That too was a traumatic experience for the families that are involved. There are, Blossom, what I want to submit this morning, very often there are many signs that are evidenced However, we fail to recognize them. And so today, as we go along, I'm hoping to talk about some of the signs that you can tell the person experiencing those signs, they probably need some intervention. They probably need some help because they're not handling emotionally well the situation and those situations that they are faced with.
All right. What are some of the signs that we can look for?
Sleeplessness is one of the signs. Isolation, a telltale sign of someone who is contemplating suicide. We call that suicide ideation. It's different to persons who actually just go out and commit suicide. There are many people who are in their mind thinking because they are emotionally unhealthy. Thoughts are coming. We call them automatic negative thoughts. These thoughts are saying, oh, I do not want to be alive. I wish I was never born. Why did my parents make me? I do not deserve to be alive, etc., etc., and many of those. So when you hear someone start saying, I wish I was not born, I wish I am not, I do not want to be here. I don't have any purpose in life. You see, suicide comes at the end of the rope when somebody, and mark my words, we're going to talk about that, when someone reaches to the point where he feels helpless and hopeless. These are the two telltale signs of people who take their life. When they feel hopeless and when they're in a position of helplessness. So we're talking about the signs. One of the signs is isolation. When someone who is probably vivacious, full of life, has a lot of activities that he or she engages in, is out there, it's having friends and having acquaintances and in the circle of life, and then you see that person starts isolating. Tell yourself that maybe it's a good time to question and or seek some intervention for that person. In addition to isolation, we have persons who become very careless with their physical health. Some people overeat and overindulge in substance. A lot of times when a person reaches a point where he or she feels that he is hopeless and or helpless, they tend to think, I do not have anything going for me. And so they become careless. Substance use runs rampant in their lives because they couldn't really care less. And so if there was someone in your life who would be a social drinker, yes, but they're never indulging to the point of wanton intoxication, and you start seeing that, tell yourself that somewhere along the line, that person's mental health might be compromised and they may need an intervention.
How do you approach someone who you think may need an intervention? Because it's not always an easy task to approach someone and question their mental health or their sanity, basically. So what's the best way, especially for the people who are untrained and may not have the necessary kind of background that you may need? People like me, how can I approach someone and help them with that intervention?
Yeah. You know what? Friendships are really important at this time. And it does not take, and I am glad that you alluded to that aspect of human interaction, the untrained, because not every community is blessed to have a psychotherapist, a counselor, or a mental health a psychologist, or someone working in the community. I mean, we are far and spread really thin, even in Grenada. So the point is, we are saying that persons like yourself, very funny, but persons who are untrained, friends, relatives, neighbors, family, though they are untrained, when you see those, that is what we are saying to you. Reach out to somebody. You may not be able to reach a person, but you can start. You can engender reaching out by saying to the person with simple words like, I am worried about you. I noticed that you haven't been around. If the person is isolating, I noticed that you have not been around. We haven't seen you for a lot of days, Is there something that is going on? Would you like to talk to somebody about what is going on? If you see they're starting to drink excessively, you tap them on the shoulder and say, buddy, I noticed that you're really drinking a lot these days, or you're overeating, or you're doing a lot of risky behaviors. You've never been like that, What's up? What's going on? Would you like to talk to somebody who could help you address this thing? A lot of people are very resistant to mental health intervention. And I think that's one of the pitfalls, and it's a myth, it's a stigma that's associated to persons reaching out for mental health. Generally, I think is still in Grenada, we see that person as weak. If somebody decides to go to a therapist, let me share this, because I always have a lot to say. I recently encountered someone mentally challenged. Well, not mentally challenged, but their mental health was challenged. Okay? So they had an episode that brought them to the point where they really did need some intervention. And one of the very first questions that was raised with me as I tried to intervene was, I am not going to take any medication. See, right away, that person has associated medication with weakness, medication with being classified as crazy, medication with being classified as mad. And there is such a bad stigma. Well, I don't know that there is ever a good stigma, but there is such a stigma about it that people are scared. People who are experiencing challenged mental health, they are afraid, they are petrified, they're scared to reach out. And that makes your job, the untrained person, more difficult. It makes my job, the trained, more difficult, because people have this stigma associated with reaching out mentally. It's okay if I reach out physically. If I am aching and I'm in pain and I have a disease, I want cure. But to say that, boy, I feel challenged, I am depressed, I am anxious, that means you are weak and you do not have the strength to deal with it. And so people think you're weak. I want to go back to some of the signs that you can tell. So I talked a little about isolation. I talked about overindulging in substance and of food sometimes. I talk about people who are starting to engage in risky behaviors. I want to now talk about people who have started to give away prized possessions. A lot of people make their little will, and if you were to be observant, I had one young person right in Grenada who committed suicide, took their life, really sad, and they had been plotting and writing in a diary how and when they were going to do it, and giving away prized possession, and made a quasi will, as it were, for the little things that they had around them. And when it was investigated, the guardians and the parents, they saw some of these signs, but it did not register that, boy, maybe something is going on here, and I really do need to reach out to a professional or somebody whether it's a priest, a pastor, a clergy person, a lay person, a teacher, a counselor, and we are blessed in Grenada to have a plethora of well-qualified persons, especially in the schools and in the education system, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Social Development, and a lot of other persons around who can provide guidance and direction for people suffering with mental illness.
How do you know when to persist? Because there are a lot of, like you mentioned, there could be resistance from the person you're trying to help. And sometimes maybe pushing a little bit too much. So how do you know how and when to persist, that you speak to, if not me, to somebody else or reach out to somebody?
A very good question, because the untrained person, it does not have the training and or experience to know when to back off. Sometimes it's like the parent who just loves his or her child and is going to do everything, even when he or she is considered to be annoying. The parents don't know when to stop. We never grow up for our parents, right? So they want to intrude in our personal life. Anything they want to make sure that we're okay, and they lack the skills of boundaries to back off. Well, that's a very good question, because in real life, persons who are challenged and there is someone who really observes and wants to help could verge on the side of becoming an annoyance, and the person who is challenged may end up further isolating, because now every time I see you, you just want to tell me, oh, go see a doctor, oh, go call Dr. Panchoo, or call the counselor, go to Mount Gay, and so there could be that very fine line with over-caring and becoming a nuisance and pushing the person further and further into that abysmal situation of challenged mental health. So we have to be careful. But the thing about it, never give up. I say to people, never give up. Keep trying, and pray for the person too, and say nice things, say very positive things, talk. If the person was a full of life person, try to remind them of the times when they were having good times, and we miss that. I miss you. I miss that beautiful smile. I miss that really vibrancy that you used to do this with. How can we get it back? I am willing to help you, because reaching out to people, I tell you this, for the two persons from our community that are now experiencing this trauma because of the loss of their loved ones, there were many signs. Telltale signs too, where you knew that had they had different training, had they known, they could have reached out. Maybe save a life, maybe not, but at least we could have given it a try, because the signs were there. And and the families are really lovely people. I know them, I mingle with them. These are people that I taught in school, the family members. And so it's a trying and traumatic time for the community. And during this month of May, Mental Health Month, we want to reach out to many other communities, many other persons who are suffering from emotional ill health and mental illness. Let them know that we care. And we are going to address the stigma of mental health and people reaching out. We're going to have educational programs addressing all of that, the stigma especially.
The family members of suicide victims or attempted suicide victims, they usually take it pretty hard. And like you said earlier in the show, there's nobody to blame. How can family members, even friends, cope with the loss via suicide? or even attempted suicide of a loved one?
The big question, Blossom, is why? For everyone who takes his or her life or who attempts to take his or her life, the big question is why? Now, it may seem to be a rude question, and it is in some instances, depending on how you ask it, because we want to know. We want to know what led you to make a decision like that. How could you sit there and think of hurting yourself, hurting your family and your children and everything else and everybody else that you leave behind? So the big question is why? And a lot of the times, most people who take their life, they have no answer to the why. Because I tell you, there are many persons who have taken their life who have sworn that they will not take their life. So we are still trying, research is still on. Why does someone who claims that I will not take my life ends up taking his or her life in real life? You know, suicide, sometimes a lot of people plan, but there is what we call impulsive suicide. That is, you have a bad experience and it is beyond your emotional tolerance. Okay? We all have a threshold of the pain that we can bear without snapping. We all do. Some people, their tolerance is as wide as the ocean because they have grown, they have developed a lot of coping skills, they have a rich and warm environment in which to thrive, so adversities they can deal with. And then there are those whose threshold for adversity and emotional imbalance really short. In fact, they have none. And so the impulsive suicide person would be, there's a breakup and I take my life, or I threaten to take my life. You know, I lost my job, I'm going to take my life. I'm going to jump from a building, I'm going to, shoot myself in the head. They can't pay their bills. Oh yeah, I'll just take my life. I have pain, my arthritis is flaring up, and they have no emotional tolerance for adversity. And so they snap. But we don't know who we are dealing with. So the big question is, families are going to ask, why? Why, Blossom? Why did you do that? Why? And a lot of times we just don't have the answer. And so that's why we need to reach out to the families. Whether you're trained or you're untrained, reach out to the families, create for them that buffer. You may not be able to answer the why, but at least you can support them in such a way that you create a positive environment for them to mourn. And suicide causes people to mourn, and so the families are in mourning. The nation is in mourning. The community is in mourning for this because these are two young men that we've lost. We're not going to see them anymore. And I mean, whatever they did to, in the society, we no longer have that role being played because they are no longer around. And so we're grieving. And for family and friends, especially those in Rose Hill, and if you're listening, I just want you to know that we're looking out for you. We care about you. It's a hard time for you. Your whys may not be answered now or never. We may never be able to provide the why for your question. Just know that you're not to be blamed. You had no responsibility in the actions of your loved ones. We support you. We're there for you, and we care for you.
Does Grenada have enough psychologists, not just in terms of numbers, but in terms of dealing with the amount of mental health issues that we may have in Grenada, from a scale of 1 to 10 or any scale of mental health? Do we have enough?
Right. Well, you probably would know my answer. My answer is no, we do not have enough. Do we have a few? Yes, we do. In various aspects of life, we have. The Ministry of Education, I think, probably has the most in terms of numbers, but they are basically and most frequently focusing on the schools. So we're looking at our school-age children, which is really good. And if you ask them, they'll tell you that there are not enough of them. And I know so. Okay, because when you have one counselor for an entire school population of 400 or 500 children, no, that won't work. That we're just dealing with surface material. We're not dealing with deep-seated emotional ill health. So no, we do not have enough. I wish we had one for every family in Grenada. Well, I mean, I am being utopic here, but I'm saying, you see, for example, like you have 4 or 5 doctors in every constituency, medical doctors. I believe these are the kinds of ways. So you have equal opportunity to avail emotional services for persons who want it, as much as you have the persons covering for the physical illness of our nation. So we do need some more people that are willing to get out there in the trenches and to help persons to adjust to crisis. And I know in a little while we're going to talk about COVID and the stigma, especially. Last weekend we had one more positive case. And so I want us to talk about that, maybe after you take a break.
Yes,
and
which I am about to do. Right.
Okay.
We're going to take a very quick break and come back and continue the discussion as we recognize May as Mental Health Month. This is To The Point. We'll be right back.
COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the droplets that are produced when someone coughs or sneezes, which makes it easy to spread between people in close contact. Now let's get prepared to stay healthy.
To reduce your chance of catching or spreading COVID-19, practice these simple everyday preventative measures. Droplets can also land on surfaces, so ensure that you wash your hands frequently for a minimum of 20 seconds, or sing the happy birthday song twice.
Want to transfer between your accounts or
avoid touching your face, especially your eyes, nose, and mouth.
Who needs receipts?
If soap and water are not readily available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with an alcohol content between 60 and 90%. 70% is ideal.
When you cough or sneeze, cover your nose and mouth with a flex elbow or a tissue.
Invest and grow. Communal.
Dispose of the tissue immediately and then wash your hands. If you notice someone has a fever and cough or other symptoms of respiratory illness, avoid close contact when possible. Let's all do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. Our health is our collective responsibility.
An exceptional personalized pharmacy experience. Additionally, children, adults, and individuals will enjoy 10% discount on purchases and on prescription medication.
COVID-19 presents the most serious
and deadly challenge.
Any of us will experience in our lifetimes.
We must act now.
It's time to detox. Detoxing can prevent and help with a myriad of health conditions: kidney and heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, high blood pressure, skin conditions, constipation, weight loss, and so much more. Try our premium detox product, Triphala. Call Nevada Natural Health Clinic and Health Spa 231-6642 449-7753 or 418-7115. Come on in or book your appointment now. We are located in Belmont, St. George's, immediately next to the South St. George Parliamentary Road.
Right time. Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately.
Welcome back to the Point. We are speaking with clinical psychologist Dr. Augustine Panchoo as we deal with May as Mental Health Month. Doc, before we took the break, you alluded to our next topic, which is COVID-19, which is what the world is dealing with in this pandemic. Specifically, was it last week or the week before, authorities in sharing information highlighted, or they requested rather, that we refrain from stigmatizing the patients who have been identified as COVID-19 positive. And this is continuing to be not just here in Grenada, but around the world. It is a problem, an issue. Your thoughts on the entire situation here in the Spice Isle?
It is disheartening, and it is probably sad. And I want to start off, that's how I want to start off. Because I remember, I think it was Dr. George Mitchell, who said that when we started to test positive, one of the families were physically threatened. And I think what we have seen growing out of all of the cases that we have had that have tested positive is a sense of panic and fear, and to some extent lack of understanding and knowledge. And so that's the direction in which I want to take this discussion. The stigma that's associated with COVID is based upon people's the ignorance or lack of knowledge. When sometimes, when we use the word ignorance, people take it in a different context. Ignorance here in terms of lack of understanding about, because we didn't know what this thing looked like. During our first positive case, we did the medical professionals, the researchers, didn't know. We didn't know what kind of beast we were dealing with. Now the research is starting to be generated, and so we have a lot of information, much more than we had a month ago. So people were fearful and scared and panicking, and so they had that emotional attunement that we need to have with people who are suffering. We went into self-preservation mode, wanting to preserve myself at the expense of, castigating you and having no sense of feeling for your pain, because all of the persons who have been tested positive and who became infected, really, I don't think neither of them really want to be a carrier. Neither of them want to infect people. Neither of them wanted to get sick. Okay, so they are in pain. They are in pain because they're starting now to kind of internalize a self-blame. Maybe I am responsible for, in some way, carrying this virus in Pio Grenada, and that's an awesome responsibility to bear. Patient zero is probably still dealing with the anguish of being the first diagnosed person. Now we have a situation where in a certain workplace, we have had 4 or 5 persons associated with the workplace and a family of that workplace testing positive. Think of the emotional turmoil, the scariness of what is going on with people. So in addressing the stigma that we have, I want us to remember a few things. 1, we can prevent the spread of COVID-19. It's not this ambiguous monster that is out there that is waiting in the dead of night to take you. No, we can prevent the spread of COVID. So that's one of the myths that we need to dispel by good sanitization and sanitizing, observing the social distancing policies and protocols, by being extra careful with whom you mingle with and how you mingle. These are tips that will help remove the stigma, because somebody could have tested positive, and that's going to be my second point. So let me make it now. Secondly, in addition to we can prevent it, the good news, Blossom, is that persons who have been infected are showing no signs now. They are showing healthy now after testing. So what does that tell us? That tells us that the virus, though deadly, because it has claimed the life of 250,000 people already, almost 3 million persons have been infected. Though deadly as it might be, we can prevent it and people can recover from COVID-19. And that's good news. That's really good news. Thirdly, the persons and family who have been infected directly by the COVID virus, I want persons to recognize and realize that they are people just like us, with feelings, with children, with the need to go to the grocery, with the need to go to pay their bills, with the need to drive, with the need to go to the garden, with the same needs as us. And so during this time, one of the things I want to make my mission is to encourage people to become very sensitive to persons who have been affected and their families. Many, many years ago, when there was a plague, persons were dying of TB, tuberculosis, before there was a cure for it, or a vaccine. Leprosy. People became isolated. In biblical times, you had to isolate, go far away. You were the scorn of society. You did not belong. I am hoping that Grenada will not succumb to the isolation policy and so stigmatize persons who have been infected or tested positive for COVID, that we want to put them on an island by themselves and isolate them. This can be really hurtful, and that can create a mental health break, a psychotic break in persons if they feel that society wants them to get rid of them. If society wants them to be isolated and not be part of the regular regime and routine of society, we can have some serious repercussions that can lead to mental illness and persons making irrational choices and decisions about their life. And we do not want any one of our COVID victim or survivors, I want to call them survivors, because we have not had a victim of COVID in Grenada, and isn't that beautiful? I think I want to applaud persons. I think Grenadians generally have a really strong immune system, and I think one of the things that have gone well for us is our diet of vegetables, a lot of vegetables and fish. I think our diet and all the beautiful, colorful fruits that we have, I think that diet has placed us in a better position to be able to address it. What do we need to note as we talk about survivors and we talk about persons who have recovered, Blossom, is to also understand that quite a number of the persons who tested positive were actually aged people. They were not like the teenagers and the very young, the young adults. They were middle-aged to old-aged persons, and they survived. So it means that either the strain that we had in Grenada was not a very devastating one, and or combined with the fact that I believe our immune system is really fighting on our behalf, because we don't know. The person who tested over the weekend could have been the very first one who had the virus in his or her system and did not test as the first one in that workplace. See, we never know, because we have that part of us. And so the stigma is what I really am addressing. Let's treat people with respect. I know it's hard. It is going to call on us to become a little more humane, a little more understanding, a little more even compromising, because those persons, the 20, the 19 who are in Grenada, they are all our friends. They are our neighbors. They go to school. They go to the same workplace. We interact with them. These are real people with real feelings and real emotions.
At this point, it's time to open the phone lines and open the social media. 435-2041 is the number to call if you have a question, comment for Dr. Panchoo. You can also send in your comments, questions, queries, concerns on the WhatsApp. It's also 435-2041, but please do not voice or video call the WhatsApp. You can also pose your questions on the GBN Television Facebook page or the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel. Let's take our first phone call. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, citizens. Well, greetings and greetings to your guests. I first want to tell Mr. Panchoo that I really do enjoy listening to him. He speaks the language well. Listen, Mr. Panchoo, I have two questions for you. I do not know, because I heard you at the beginning and I had to drop off for about 5 or 10 minutes. And therefore, I beg your apologies if this issue was raised prior. It has to do with our capacity in this country to deal with the level of mental problems that we have. Can you tell me if the World Health Organization has a sort of a ratio, per capita ratio, psychologists, psychiatrists, and otherwise to the population, or probably to every 1,000 of the population, however it's calculated, I do not know. And do you think that we fully equipped to deal with that problem here in Grenada? The second thing is this. In your studies, you may have, and pay attention to my words, dealt with the issue of air pollution, and I stress air pollution, the contamination of the atmosphere, and its relationship to dementia. Can you confirm that there is a relationship between these two things? And can you tell me if the state of Grenada is cognizant of this and what they intend to do with it? Thank you very much, and do have a nice day, will you?
Thank you so much, Citizen Rollo.
Thank you very much, Citizen Rollo, for that question. Those two are very pertinent questions. So one, the question about does the World Health Organization have a ratio for mental health professionals to the population? Maybe they do, Citizen Rollo. I don't know that I know the answer to that, but here is what I'm going to promise you. I'm going to research it, and next time I'm on this program or any other program, you can call, or I will probably make contact with you and give you that information, the ratio. That's a really important question. The second question is air pollution. Is there a direct relationship between air pollution and dementia? I don't know. I am not very familiar with the research. I don't think I have zeroed in on the relationship between air pollution and dementia as a specific health condition. However, what I want to let you know is that I am well aware. I have studied enough information to help to tell you, Citizen Rollo, and the other listeners, that air pollution does create havoc on not just the physical health, but also on the emotional health. And yes, anything that interferes with our respiratory system does affect our physical body. and our brains and our motor actions and our functioning. So yes, there is going to be a relationship between air pollution and the level of health that we enjoy. Thank you very much.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Good morning.
Good morning. I've got a question for Dr. Panchoo.
Yes, go ahead.
That if you suspect somebody is going towards this mental situation, and you're trying to help them, and they're constantly blaming you. So, for example, the person would say, "You that caused me to do that. You that is causing the problem," because the person is saying, "I'm doing wrong things," and so, like for example, they should do whatever they want to do. How do you address that situation?
Thank you, Colin.
Well, I could only do the peripheral of that question because it would be good for me to get to know the real context of the question. But I understand your question, caller. Let me quickly say that very often persons who are mentally challenged, that is people with emotionally challenged psychological health, will avoid taking responsibility. So a lot of times you have to be careful when you hear people say, "You made me do it." Well, I always tell my clients and or students, whomever I'm talking with, people don't make you do things. People can annoy you, they can spur you, they can threaten you, but you are the ones doing it. Of course, you have impulsive decisions that are in response without thinking, are in response to a threat. Those are not well thought of. But generally, most decisions that we take in life, whether it is doing or saying, it's because we want to. So when somebody starts saying, "You made me, I am responding to, so the way you treat me." Like I always tell people, Blossom, here is a philosophy I have of mine. Give me respect and I'll give you back. No, that's a wrong philosophy. I must be respectful regardless of. If I am waiting to be respectful because you have to show me respect, then we are going to have a lot of disrespectful people and a nation of disrespect. So one of the things, Carla, is that we need to take responsibility for our actions. And so when people start blaming you for it, no, it's not you, it's them. It's them, sorry. Yeah.
There's a question on the WhatsApp. Are you in the
Yes.
same discipline as Dr. Fleury? If yes, did he consult with you about the extent of his work on prison reform? Did you consult POG on the adverse impact of the teacher's pay deduction? Are you going to work with your church in training members on the dangers of victim blaming?
Well, a whole lot of questions.
Yes.
Yes, I don't.
First one is Dr. Fleury.
Dr. Fleury. I don't know that. I know one Dr. Fleury that he is not in the mental health. I don't know if you're talking about Dr. Linwell Fleury.
I'm not sure. The other question, Did you consult, I'm wondering what is POG, maybe GOG government, on the adverse impact of the teacher's pay deduction?
I can't answer that question. No, I have not consulted. The government has never consulted with me on the effects. But I want to suspect, let me say my own thing, in regard to the question, I want to suspect any adversity that someone experienced, and whether it is ill health challenge or financial challenge, especially financial challenge, it is going to create uneasiness and emotional turmoil for the person. So yes, I agree that the deducting of pay does have an effect on the emotional health of our teachers and our public servants whose salary were deducted.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Good morning.
Good morning. Just wanted to make a quick comment on Dr. Panchoo's discussion.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. That comment is, I'm hearing him with the stigma that is caused on the survivors of COVID-19, and I understand how impactful that could be on people's self-esteem and the way they're treated. But I wanted to put a positive spin on it because these people, although they have contracted the virus and they have not succumbed, but they've gotten over it, they are now in a better position because the immune system would have built. So they're in a really better position than most of us because they have actually experienced the virus and have built immunity. So really and truly, instead of looking at them negatively, they are now in a better position than us. So that's a positive spin on the whole situation.
Thank you very much, caller.
That is a very good point. Now we have the persons who have been infected and they're now they have recovered. They now have the antibodies, and therefore means that the immune system is stronger now, and so that's a very good point. Very good. And so you see, that is part of the education that we need to do, because not only do people recover, not only can we prevent it, but also persons, you need to now see persons who have been infected and are now testing no existence or, clean, that their immune system is stronger. And that's a good spin.
WhatsApp, when someone is acting up because of their mental health, who is it that you're supposed to call? Where's the best person or organization to seek help from first?
Right now, the national helpline is run and operated through the Ministry of Social Development. And that hotline number, you can put it on the screen, is 440-4787. 440-4787. This helpline is manned 24/7, and calls are directed to a counselor, a mental health professional throughout day and night, weekends. It's 24/7. So call that number.
There's a question. Well, seeking statistics really. Do males commit suicide more than females, and do they both commit suicide by the same means?
No, the answer is absolutely no. Men are more lethal. We have more attempted suicide by females, but men are more successful. So that's the research. The research says that generally women, when they contemplate suicide ideation and or attempt to do suicide, they go softer means, a little pill, that kind of thing. Men are lethal. We hang ourselves, we shoot ourselves, and we do the brutal stuff because men must die macho. We must not die as though we're weak, so we must die strong. And so that's why men will jump from a tall building. Women are scared. They look down and they start scaring. They realize, no, I do not want to kill myself. And that's what the research said. The research said we do different means. So women are more pill-oriented people. Men are gun, hanging, and jumping from tall buildings.
Oh, okay. I like that piece of information. Somebody on WhatsApp says if you could address the difference between the words crazy and mentally challenged. To many, we hear the word crazy and think that people need to change their language.
Yes, we absolutely in Grenada, we need to change our thing, because remember we used to call the psychiatric hospital the madhouse.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how we came across that, but that was such an injustice to mental health. So the difference between crazy and mentally challenged, when we think of crazy, we are thinking of persons who are severely mentally ill. They have one or two of the following: either schizophrenia and or bipolar. These, when a person reaches these psychotic realm, yes, or stages in mental illness, because we have depression, we have phobias, we have panic attack, we have anxiety, we have and a whole list and range of dissociative disorders and depressive disorders and anxiety disorders. And so when you come to PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar, either it's one or two, and you come to schizophrenia, that's where people, is the schizophrenic stage, it's where people usually need institutionalization for their mental health. And so that's where people call them crazy. And so people associate schizophrenia with being mentally unsound. But there is a whole sea of other disorders that exist besides schizophrenia and severe bipolar.
A WhatsApp question: how is the COVID-19 team considering dying by suicide and the frustration over people not being at work?
People not being at work, people not able to do their routine is driving people literally off the bunkers. And there is no question about it, because the human being has a routine. Our routine has been established. We wake up at a particular time of the day, Monday. Our waking up time Monday and Saturday and Sunday is vastly different for most persons. Monday to Friday, we have a regular routine wake up. Our body is attuned to it. Our mind, we are wired. Blossom, listen, watch this thing. We are wired. Our brain cells are wired to follow this routine. All of a sudden, that routine has been taking us. We are itchy. We're antsy. Listen, I see people going to Grenville and to the Tongues to shop, and I know they don't need to go. Maybe I'm judging them, but I know they don't need to go because they probably just want to get out of their house because that's the routine that their mind. So they're going crazy. So whether it is financial loss, job loss, the insecurity of food for them, whatever it is, it's going to break the routine. When the routine is broken, our mental health is now challenged.
Let's take this phone call. Good morning.
Good morning, Blossom. Mine's just an observation. At this difficult time now when we've got this thing going on, I've noticed a record with a video, Better Days Are Ahead. And it shows that chap with a very tied to his foot and he's heading, from what you see, he's heading to go and commit suicide. Because he goes there, he climbs up on this thing, something like where, in Granite Town, and then he stands there. But luckily, a tour guide comes and he calls him down. So I thought to myself, if at this point in time, if that's the best thing we could put on, what do you think about it?
He's referring to a music video by one of our local artists. The song is speaking about better days are coming. It was just portraying that while you may be going through hardships, better days are coming. So I think it's kind of fitting, speaking about being mentally healthy and ensuring or giving you a little advice that better days are coming.
I tell you too, though, Blossom and Carla, maybe what you are on to there, it's something for us to think about. You know, a lot of people try to help, and I am not blasting because I haven't seen the video. I don't know the context. I probably heard a song played by you, Blossom, this morning on my way down. A couple of the artists. So I'm saying, but however, sometimes people they are not acquainted with the psychological impact, and so somebody will make a video, but they haven't checked in with a clinical psychologist to see, well, tell me, how will that affect my audience? Is that a good thing? I have a message, maybe you could give me some direction. People don't really do that, but I refer to like the United States, where all of the CSIs and all of those. There is a clinical psychologist that works on the set with these episodes, so that the information that is shared on TV is sound emotionally and psychologically.
Dr. Panchoo, we've quickly run out of time. Just a quick note as to how people can get into contact with anyone that's seeking assistance, who and where they can get in contact with someone to help them.
Yes, please do. The Ministry of Social Development, our ministry is tasked with the responsibility of responding to our nation at this time. Our number, 440-4787, 440-4787. If you call that number, it doesn't matter what time of day you call that number, 24/7. It's a helpline number. the caller will take your information, and he or she who is manning the line is going to direct your calls to the professionals we have. And currently we have quite a number of professionals who are working with the helpline. So we are available 24/7. So please call if you feel challenged, or if you know of someone, please encourage them to call, because this is really tough time for us. And we can get through it. We just have to seek the help that is available.
Thank you so much, Doc, for shedding some light on the issue and giving us a little advice as we recognize May as Mental Health Month. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I look forward to coming back again soon, because this is Mental Health Month.
Okay. Of course. Have a great
day, Blossom. Have a great day, listening audience. Bye-bye.
All right. That was clinical psychologist in the Ministry of Social Development, Dr. Augustine Panchoo, as we recognize May as Mental Health Month. Thank you so much, those of you who tuned in, those of you who phoned with your questions, typed in your questions on the various platforms. Appreciate it. That's the end of my time today. Joseph is up next with Mid-Morning Buzz. Have yourselves a safe, enjoyable Monday. If you're heading out, do so safely, do so quickly, and continue to protect yourself and stay healthy. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.